Hello my loves. About 2 years ago, pretty much bang on 2 years ago, as I record this video, I decided to start a BookTube channel approximately a decade after everyone else decided to start a BookTube channel. But I've had a really lovely time since. I feel like my reading has evolved and adapted. I feel like I think a little bit differently about how I engage with books. And I've really loved chatting to you guys on the internet about books. That has been a delight. When I started this channel, I took this picture, which was me in a chair sitting behind 3 piles of books, which were, at the time that I started this channel, all of the unread novels on my shelf. And I thought it might be fun to go through those piles and see how many of those books I have actually read since having this channel and how many of them I have not read. In short, has BookTube been good for my reading or not? What I have done, I have been through the titles because the picture is not brilliant quality. In fact, only this GIF has all of the books in shot. I'm not going to put the GIF up on the screen because that will get really annoying and glitchy after a while. Like, I'll put it up now, but then I'm going to put a static picture up for the remainder of this video. But it does cut the bottom few books off because when I started doing this, I didn't know anything about framing. And after 2 years, I still don't know anything about framing. So we're gonna pop that picture up. I have already been through to check that I can tell what those books are. I don't think or expect you to be able to see what all of these books are from the picture, which is why I'm gonna go through them. I'm not gonna be giving in-depth reviews. I'm just gonna give you like one line about the book if I've read it, and possibly if I know much about it, I'll give you a line about it if I haven't read it. And then at the end, we're going to see how many of these books I've read. And then I haven't prepped this, but I think what I will do is, Christ alive, count how many unread books I currently have on my TBR to see if things have got better or worse. So without further ado, this book at the bottom here is The Engineer of Human Souls by Josef Skvorecky. I read this year as part of my Euros reading challenge. It is a Czech book and I hated it. I am still to this day angry that I finished it. It was a big book and I did not enjoy it. The next book there is The Accidental by Ali Smith, which is still unread. I love Ali Smith's books. If you've been on my channel at all in the last 2 years, you will probably know that I love Ali Smith. But I am nervous about moving too quickly through her back catalogue because when I first got into her, she is quite a prolific writer, and I don't think she's going to stop writing at any point, but I need her books to last for my lifetime. So I'll get there, but I'm not in a rush. Then the next one is Some Experiences of an Irish RM by Somerville and Ross, which is a Anglo-Irish book. I actually think it probably shouldn't be on this case because I think it is actually a collection of short stories. But it was adapted into quite a famous In These Islands TV series called something similar. I think it is short stories. And so that should be on my other shelf upstairs. This is just novels. We're only talking novels today because it was only novels in that picture. My non-fiction bookcase is a fucking mess. I actually think you might get a video in the next few weeks of me trying to sort out that bookcase because I have a lot of non-fiction books because I work. I have to read a lot of non-fiction for work. I don't work in non-fiction. I have to read a lot of non-fiction books for work. So I have quite a lot up there, and it is messy. And also upstairs is poetry plays and short story collections. So either way, I haven't read Some Experiences of an Irish RM by Somerville and Ross, but it shouldn't be on this shelf. It should be upstairs, but whatever, never mind. Then we have Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Now, I really do want to read this soon, but I haven't read it yet. Oh, that is a printout of the... This is as big as I could make it so that it could fit on one sheet. I haven't read Anna Karenina yet, but I do enjoy Tolstoy's writing. I really love War and Peace, and have enjoyed, since having this channel, doing that year-long War and Peace read-along. And I will get to Anna Karenina, but who knows when. You may notice as we go through this video that a lot of the bigger books are the ones that remain unread. It's like I'm scared of them or something. Then this little orange guy here, I've got no idea where on the screen you'll be. The little orange one, that is Street of Lost Footsteps by Lyonel Trouillot, who is a Haitian author. And I bought that book specifically because I wanted to read a book from Haiti as part of the Storygraph Read the World challenge. I think the year that I started this channel. And I think one of my first reading vlogs, I read that book in. I really loved it. It's a very experimental, unusual kind of non-linear book that takes place sort of all in one day. And it's about a lot of political unrest, and you move through different characters, but it's a really impactful book for such a small one. So I do recommend it if you are looking to read from a wider range of countries and you haven't hit Haiti yet. I recommend that. Then we have, the Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Yes, by Stuart Turton. I have read that. I have read that. I didn't like it, but I read it in a vlog where my best friend Farmer picked my TBR. She picked 7 books and I ended up reading all 7 of them. And then we had a whole big chat where we ranked them. And I'm pretty sure this was my least favorite out of the 7. I thought it was a really cool concept, kind of like, it's kind of it's a kind of classic whodunit with added time travel, which I thought was going to be cool, but I just ended up not liking it. The next one is Lord Malquist and Mr. Moon by Tom Stoppard, which I haven't read. This might be one of the books that has been on my TBR for the longest. I actually think that belongs to my friend Raf, and I think she gave it to me when we were 15. So it's been a while. We were going through a real Tom Stoppard phase because we were theatre kids. We were having a big Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead moment, and I was Rosencrantz, obviously, in case you're wondering, and clearly a Rosencrantz. Yeah, she lent me that book because she was like, oh, he's mostly known for writing plays and screenplays. He wrote Shakespeare in Love, but I haven't read the novel. I think I read like the first paragraph like multiple times and just thought, I'm not in the mood for this. So I really must get to that at some point, or indeed give it back to Raf after 2 decades of having it. Whoops. Okay, next we have At the Breakfast Table by Defne Suman, which I did read also this year for that Reading the Euros challenge. This is a Turkish book. I didn't like this one either. Then we have The Little Friend by Donna Tartt, which I have not read. I have read the biggies, the Tartt biggies, Secret History and The Goldfinch. I really liked both of them. I read The Goldfinch when it came out, but at the time I wasn't used to talking to people about my reading, and so I don't really remember too much about what I thought about it, except that I enjoyed it, because I am someone who, the thing I have found about having a YouTube channel is the more I talk about books, the more I remember them. And I mean, so if you're watching this being like, but Hannah, you don't remember anything, Imagine how bad I was before I had this channel. I do remember liking The Goldfinch though. I love The Secret History, but I did read it when I was like 16, 17, which I feel is like prime secret history time, and I pretty deliberately haven't revisited it because I liked my experience with that book and I want to leave it at that. But I do want to get to this, particularly because I listened to True Grit this year and Donna Tartt narrated it and it reminded me that this was on my shelf. So I want to get to it. Then we have, I think that's the Aeneid by Virgil. There are books, we will come to this. I'm calling them in honor of Books Unbound. I think these are like acorn books. They're like, particularly with classics, where they are on my physical TBR, but they're kind of on a shelf of my TBR where I know I am not in any rush to read this. I mean, like, I am not in any rush to read this book in the next decade. No fucking pressure. But at some point, I'd like to read the Aeneid, but whenever is fine. Then we have Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, which I have not read, though I did watch the film adaptation, The Handmaiden, and loved it. But I did read the next one, which is Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which was the first Sarah Waters book that I read. I read that in a vlog with a couple of other books that we're going to be talking about later, where I was reading authors that I kind of couldn't believe that I hadn't read yet. Spoiler, including Sarah Moss and Patricia Highsmith. And I loved all of the books that I read as part of that vlog. It was a very fun time. So I don't know if I'm going to be linking all of these videos, because essentially what you're getting here is a recap of 2 years worth of content. Go browse my channel. I don't know. Then we have, I think that is Cider with Rosie by Laurie Lee, which I have not read yet. Classic. I don't actually really know what it's about. I think I've spoken about this on my channel before. I had a real problem where I used to buy a lot of books in charity shops, and the criteria for whether I bought the book or not was, have I heard of this? Which, as someone with like a literature degree, there's a lot of books I've heard of, particularly a lot of classics that I've heard of. And I really don't think I need to own all of the ones that I own, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Next we have English Animals by Laura Kaye. I have read this one and I really liked it. This is kind of it's quite a tense, sexy little domestic thriller about a woman who she thinks she's going to like nanny or au pair for this family that live in kind of this like very beautiful but in quite a state of disrepair kind of English country house. And is she from Slovenia? Sorry if I'm misremembering. She's from around that area. I think it's Slovenia, but I could be wrong. She gets to this house and is very confused because there are no children there. And it's about kind of her life at that house and the relationships that are going on in that house. And we'll leave it at that, but I really enjoyed it. Then we have Schindler's Ark by Thomas Kenneally, which no, I have not read, but it's the book that inspired the film Schindler's List, and I want to read it at some point. Just haven't got to it yet. Then we have Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cooper Smith, which is set in Vietnam, and I really liked this book. I am very hit or miss with magical realism in books. Sometimes it really works for me and sometimes it really doesn't, but I really enjoyed this book. It was kind of creepy, but there was a lot in there about the French colonial history in Vietnam, which I knew nothing about. So that was really interesting, and there was kind of a lot of generational stuff going on. I really enjoyed it. It was a good book. Has she written other books? I should look into that. I think at the time I looked and she'd only written a short story collection. but maybe I should check if that is still the case. The next one is Passing by Nella Larsen, which no, I haven't, but I really, really must. I really want to do a book to screen of that because there's the film with Tessa Thompson that I really want to see. Possibly a little project for the winter months. It's giving winter vibes to me, but I don't know if that's nonsense. Then we have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, which, yes, I have read and really enjoyed, although not as much as I enjoyed Mr. Loverman, which I also read in the intervening 2 years, but I did like it. Quite a fragmented book. Well, no, because it was very well connected, but you follow a large cast of characters whose lives all slightly intersect, and most of the characters are women. So yeah, read that, liked it. Then we have Under the Skin by Michelle Faber. No, haven't, but again, book to screen coming at some point because I also haven't seen the film adaptation with Scarlett Johansson and I really want to see that too. So something will be coming at some point. But I have read a different Michelle Faber book. I read The Book of Strange New Things this year, which was the first book of his that I have read, and I really enjoyed that. So I'm now even more excited to get to Under the Skin when I get to Under the Skin. Then we have My Beautiful Friend by Elena Ferrante, which, yes, I did read. I read this, I think in my first year on YouTube. I think I've got a vlog where I just read this book. Because I think at the time when I was doing Read the World stuff, I was doing a video, like a vlog per book, and then I decided that was boring for you. So I stopped doing that. But yeah, this was interesting because for most of the book I didn't like it, and then I really liked it towards the end, and that kind of annoyed me because it's part of a trilogy. And now I really don't know. I think where I ended with that quartet, it's a quartet, isn't it? Not a trilogy. The Neapolitan Quartet. Where I ended with that is like, if I happen to see a copy secondhand, or it's just in the library when I happen to be browsing, I'm not going to go looking for it, but if it's there, I'll get it. I'll take it as a sign from like the reading gods that I am supposed to read that book. Then we have Maurice by E.M. Forster. No, I haven't, but I really want to, particularly because a friend of mine read this recently, and they were saying like they really liked it because this is a queer classic that I think was published posthumously because like E.M. Forster's friends and family were like, you can't publish this while you are still alive. And I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but I think. And then what Iz said he really liked about it was that it was deliberately a happy ending. Like he didn't want to write a sad gay book. He wanted to write a happy gay book. I don't know if that's wrong now, or if I am totally putting words in Iz's mouth. I don't think he watches this channel though, so it's fine. The Promise by Damon Galgut is next. Yes, I have. I kind of liked this, and then I kind of didn't. It is about, so it's set in, I think, during apartheid in South Africa, and basically there was someone in the family died, like either a matriarch or a patriarch, can't remember, but like a head of the family or someone like pretty close to the head of the family. And their dying wish was that one of like the domestic workers who'd been with the family like forever should be given like a property that was like on their estate, a black woman. And then no one in the family like upheld that wish, that kind of dying wish, and it's kind of about that. But I remember finding the writing of this really jarring. There would be like random bits where it felt like the voice had just completely flipped and inverted, and there'd be like a sentence where it felt like all of a sudden it was in like second person. And I'm sure it was doing something clever that I just wasn't picking up on, but I just found it like weird, like it just read weird to me. I do kind of want to read some of his other books though. I have since got one of his other books. Someone gave it to me. I didn't deliberately go and buy it because I don't think he's on my go and buy list, but he's on my I am interested to try more list. Then we have North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. No, haven't read, but have read other. Have I only read Cranford? This is one of those books, right? I put it in my unread. I might have read this about 15 years ago. I just can't remember. I've definitely read Cranford and I liked it. She's funny. But I can't remember if I've read this. So it's staying in the unread pile until I give it another go and see if I have in fact read it. Then we have Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. No, have not read that yet. Bit intimidated by it, and also a bit intimidated because I love Piranesi so much, which we'll get to, but I'm now scared to read this because my bookish twin Evie, she loved Piranesi as much as I loved Piranesi, and then didn't get on at all with Jonathan Strange, which makes me tentative. I am a very swayable person, unfortunately. Then that little fancy one on the top is The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, which is a classic, but in my head, I think just because most of the Russian literature I've read has been like classic Russian literature. This is more of a modern classic. I think, was it written in like the 60s or the 70s? In my head, this is like a 19th century book and I've got no idea what it's about, but I do have one of those lovely Macmillan Collector's editions of it. So I should read that at some point. That's the first column. And earlier previous Hannah earlier on in the day, totted that up to be 25 books, and I've read 8 of them. So it's not great, is it? It's not awful, but for someone who reads between 100 and 150 books most years, it's not a great hit record, is it? Never mind. Right, let's go to the next one. Briefly going to put the GIF up again so you can see that bottom little row. That at the bottom, that is In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. No, I haven't read this. Yes, I will at some point. No, I haven't. Then we have, next one is The Member of the Wedding by Carson McCullers, which I have read and adored. I love Carson McCullers. Their writing makes me so happy. Yeah, really enjoyed this. About 3 days in the build up to our main character, who's a young girl. Her brother is getting married and she gets like obsessed. She a bit kind of falls in love with the idea of the wedding, and it's brilliant and wonderful, but it's also just captures kind of a moment in time in the American, that sort of point of American history, like really well. It's Carson McCullers has a bit of the Ali Smith. Their writing isn't similar, but like where I like their writing so much that I become inarticulate. So Member of the Wedding, yes, I have, and so should you. Then we've got The Shadow King by Maza Mengiste. No, haven't. That was, I think I bought that. I was never really one for following literary prizes. I've got more into it since kind of watching BookTube and then being eventually starting this channel, because it's kind of hard to avoid the prices, I think, sometimes over here. But I randomly decided to buy like a bunch of books off the Women's Prize specifically for that year. Don't know why, but I haven't got to it yet, but I will at some point. Have you read it? Is it good? You tell me. Then we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which I have now read and I did like, except for like the last bit. I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler, but I was curious to see how she resolved a book that was told from Patroclus's perspective, given what happens to Patroclus in that story. And I did not appreciate her workaround. However, that book made me sob. So Circe's better though, in my opinion. I much preferred Circe. Then we have The Khan by Simon Meir. Don't really know much about this one. Can't remember when or how I bought it, but I think it's like a crime thriller. But I think it's a crime thriller centering British Asian characters, which I haven't read a lot of and I do want to read. And every so often, I often go to thrillers on like audio because I don't own a lot of them, but every so often I really am in the mood for one. So I think I bought it so that it would be there on my shelves for when the mood struck me. And I haven't been struck with exactly that mood yet. Then we have Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell, which I haven't read yet. And I now have more David Mitchell books unread on my shelf. I really liked Cloud Atlas, but it is the only book of his that I've read. But he is one of those authors that I just sort of seem to be collecting and not reading. Yeah, I'll get there eventually, guys. Then we have, oh yeah, another thriller that I bought, this time from the middle aisle of Aldi, Truly Madly Deeply by Liane Moriarty, which is actually also where I happened to buy Girl, Woman, Other. I do not make a habit of buying books from the supermarket. I do try to source my books from indies where possible, but for whatever reason, I think they were really cheap. And I grabbed that one because Farmer reads a lot more crime than me and is a bit of a fan of Liane Moriarty for like a kind of trashy thriller time. And I could be down for that at some point. Then we have Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, in another, I'm going to buy things from the Women's Prize list and then leave them on my shelves and not read them. Haven't read. Do really want to though. Do really want to. And then we have a little spate of Doris Lessing books. Now, I love Doris Lessing. I read The Grass is Singing when I was at uni and loved it. Her favourite book of mine is The Golden Notebook, which I adore and is one of the very few classics that I have reread. And I no longer have my physical copy of that. I think I lent it to someone. I think I lent it to someone who I then broke up with without realising that they had my Doris Lessing book. So I won't be getting that back. I'll probably, maybe I'll buy myself a new one. Here's a deal. I will be able to buy myself a new copy of The Golden Notebook when I read some of these Doris Lessing books. So we have here at the bottom The Four-Gated City by Doris Lessing, which is the 5th book in the Children of Violence series, which is a really cool series, which starts with Martha Quest, and then there's some other books, and then it ends with this book, and I own 1, 2, and 5. because I keep randomly picking up books by Doris Lessing and just hoping that they go together. And I managed it I got Martha Quest, and then I got whatever the next one is, something marriage. And I've read both of those and I really liked them, but I haven't just naturally stumbled across book 3 or book 4 yet. And because I am whimsical, I've decided that I can't possibly just buy the 3rd and 4th books. They must fall in front of me, and then I will get them. So I have the 5th book without having the 3rd and 4th, so I don't know when I'll be able to read Four Gated City. And then the next book is even more stupid, because that is the making of the representative of Planet 8, which is the 4th book, I think, in a 5-book series of which I own none of the other titles. Just book 4. Just book 4. So, but the Children of Violence series is cool though. It starts with Martha Quest, which is about a young girl called Martha Quest, and it's it actually gives me quite big Carson McCullers vibes, like Carson McCullers, but a bit like meaner, but then over the course of the series, so it starts in kind of like what was Rhodesia in Zimbabwe, which is where Doris Lessing was born, and then it goes all the way through, and book 5 is set in the future, which I don't think is our future now, but was her future when she wrote it. It's a cool series. I really enjoyed the books, but unfortunately, unless someone happens to throw book 3 and 4 at my feet, apparently I am not able to read it, so never mind. And then The Sweetest Dream by Doris Lessing, that's the 3rd one there. That is a standalone, so I could read that book. I should read that book. Goodness me. Then we have, what are you there? Next one. I think that is Decline and Fall by Evelyn Waugh. What? I can't say that name. How do you say that? I can't say it without like a big question mark in my voice. What? Sorry if that's also your surname. If it is your surname, please phonetically tell me how to pronounce it. So haven't read that, but have read other books by that author, whose name I will not try and say again, in the past. So I'll probably like it when I get to it. Next, Cane Warriors by Alex Wheatle. So I bought this because I worked with Alex Wheatle a few years ago, who is a lovely, lovely man. And he writes mostly children's fiction that is historical fiction that centers key moments in Black history. So I haven't read this, but I have read Commotion of the Caribbean, which I thought was great, like in middle grade. But Cane Warriors, I'm pretty sure, is about slavery, and from what I've heard, it is pretty brutal for a middle grade book. So I'm kind of, I want to get to it eventually. Then we have Underbelly by Anna Whitehouse. Is that her name? Oh, I think she's up there. I think it's that. I think I bought this because I remember Jen Campbell talking about it and really liking the nuanced discussion of social media in it. Other than that, I can't remember anything about it, but I feel like I'm banned from saying, I don't want to get to it eventually, but I do want to get to it eventually. Never mind. Right. I haven't read it though. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. No, and I'm scared. I love Virginia Woolf. I really love Virginia Woolf. I've loved everything of hers that I have read. However, I love The Hours by Michael Cunningham so much. It is one of my favourite books, and the film adaptation of The Hours is one of my favourite adaptations of all time. And I love it so much, and it's that I'm scared to read Mrs. Dalloway. Not so much scared, I'm intimidated. I'm intimidated to read Mrs. Dalloway. I haven't read it yet. Then we have, that is After Sappho by Selby Wynne Schwartz. Again, I think so many of these were on like the Women's Prize around a similar time. That's teaching me not to buy books with no specific plan to read them. I think what happens is I want to be like finger on the pulse and be like, I'm going to read all these books at the same time as everyone else. And then I get grumpy because my heart wants to read something else, but my brain goes, read this book, because everyone else is talking about it. And then I don't have a good time, and then I get sad. So really I should just not buy those books until I want to read them. Maybe. It's not going to happen though, is it? Then we have A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. No, haven't read this yet. However, really loved The World According to Garp. And what's the other one? The Cider House Rules. Yeah? I'm getting confused because of Cider with Rosie earlier. Yeah, the Cider House Rules. I find his books are really immersive and really full and rich, and I do enjoy them. So I'm not sure how or why I haven't read that one yet, but never mind. Then we have, I'm pretty sure that is Goodbye to Berlin by Christopher Isherwood, which I have read and I really enjoyed. Wonderful. It's the book that inspired Cabaret, though very different to Cabaret. But kind of like auto-fiction-y, because Christopher Isherwood, that they're stories that were heavily inspired by Christopher Isherwood's own time spent in Europe. So yeah, I think yes, fiction, but more on the non-fiction end. Then that's like an old Penguin classic. Can't read it at all, but based on its size and colour, I'm pretty sure it's Portrait of a Lady by Henry James, which, no, I haven't read yet. Just glossing straight over that. This is How You Lose the Time War. You Lose the Time War? That one. By, oh my goodness, what are the authors called? Amal Al-Matar? Max Gladstone? This was a queer, speculative sci-fi book that had lots of cool ideas in, and for me just didn't work. Unfortunately, I didn't. It was unusual for me because I am not normally a person that needs to understand the mechanics in order to appreciate like the art, but this I found a little too nebulous and whatever, and I really wanted it to be a bit more grounded in, like, I wanted to understand more about, because it's a battle that is it's basically these two people on opposite sides, one called Red, one called Blue, who are fighting a war against each other through time, but then they sort of fall in love with each other. But how they move through time and who they are and what's going on, it was all just very vague. And I feel like the vibe was, oh, it's very mysterious. And I felt like, oh, it's very incomplete. Ooh, she's getting bitchy. Mrs. Death by Selena Godden. No, I haven't, but oh, I really want to. That's a good right now book, isn't it? Isn't it? I should be reading that like now, right? Feels wintry, like autumnal wintry. Yeah? Maybe that's high on the TBR. Then, oh, who are you? Who are you and what are you? Oh yeah, I think that murky little guy in the middle that you can't at all see the title of, I'm pretty sure that's The Human Factor by Graham Greene. Haven't read it. That is one that I purchased because I'm like, I've heard of Graham Greene. I know nothing about it. It is a shock to absolutely nobody that I haven't read that. Then we have Deep Water by Patricia Highsmith, which was the one that I read along with not Fingersmith, Tipping the Velvet. I loved this book. It's so good. It's so cool. If you've read or seen like Ripley, which is what I think Patricia Highsmith is most famous for, you will know that she does the kind of sympathetic sociopath really well. I think she does it even better in Deep Water than she does it in Ripley, and this is a standalone, and it was like the things that woman got me on board with. I was disgusted with myself when I read it. It's great. Then, I really want to read this. Horse Walks into a Bar by David Grossman. This, I think, won the International Booker Prize. It is, I think, a weird experimental book that is like a guy, I think, having like a breakdown in the middle of doing a stand-up routine. I think. I really want to read that. I really want to read that one soon. That is going way up the TBR. Then we have The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. Now, I read a lot of Dostoevsky. I had, along with War and Peace, I had a real Russian late teens, like 16 to 18. We were very into the Russians. And this is one of the few Dostoevskys I haven't read. But I was very into The Idiot and I was very into Crime and Punishment. Don't read too much into that. But I haven't read this one yet. But again, it's one of those classics that I'm like, well, I haven't read it yet and my life hasn't imploded, so we'll get there. We will get there. Then we have Paddy Clark, Ha 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 by Roddy Doyle. Have not read. Haven't read any Roddy Doyle and really want to. So that would be a logical place to start, given that it's on my bookcase. Then we have This Mournable Body by Tsitsi Dangarembga. So this is a book that I bought in that period of my life where I was buying all those books that were nominated for the Women's Prize. And I bought it and I was really excited to read it. And then I realized it was a sequel. So I listened to the audiobook of Nervous Conditions, which is the first book, and I really liked it, and then I never picked up this. So, never mind. Then we have The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. I haven't, and you know, I'm not going to give it away because I might want to get there eventually. I do like Dickens. But I feel like The Old Curiosity Shop is not going to be, I just feel like it's not going to be one of my faves. For context, my favourite is Bleak House. I love Bleak House. And I know lots of people don't really like Dickens, they don't gel with his writing, but when he's being salty and political, I love it. And I feel like The Old Curiosity Shop is not going to be that so much, but also I know nothing about it except the title's kind of cutesy. Who knows? Then we have, oh, what are you? Oh, it's And the Ass Saw the Angel, which is a Nick Cave book, a novel by Nick Cave. I haven't read this yet, but I am still in the middle of reading and really enjoying his book of conversations between Nick Cave and Sean O'Hagan called Faith, Hope and Carnage. Loving it. And it has reminded me that I have never tried reading his writing. And this is a classic impatient type book. I haven't read this book yet. Well, 2 reasons. Firstly, I'm a bit scared in case it's shit, and I love Nick Cave and I don't want it to be shit. And I also was planning on doing a reading vlog where I read books written by people who are famous but not famous for writing books. And so I put it off because I was going to do a themed vlog, and then I didn't do a themed vlog because I decided that themed vlogs ruined my reading, and so I wasn't going to do them anymore. And then now here we are, 2 years in, and I still haven't read it. Damn. Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, unread. I do want to read that though. Nevertheless, unread. The White Tiger by Aravinda Adiga. Thank God. I have read this. I actually read this in the same video that I read Street of Lost Footsteps by Lyonel Trouillot and Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cooper Smith. I liked it. I think it was my least favourite of the 3 that I read in that video, but I really liked the other 2, so there's no shade on White Tiger. It was kind of a rags to criminally got riches story. It's set in India. I liked it. I liked it enough that after I finished reading it, I did get another one of his titles secondhand. Can't remember what the title is, but it's somewhere on one of these 3 shelves. Then Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. I have read it. Phew. I loved it. For me, Eliza did not quite meet those heights with her second book. And I won't be reading her latest one because the whole short story allergy thing. But loved Boy Parts. Very, very cool book. So that was 31 books in that pile, and I read 6. Oh my God, it's getting worse. Oh, it's getting worse. Oh no, it's getting worse. And oh my God, I need to go faster, right? Pick up the pace. At the bottom, that is The Age of Reason by Jean-Paul Sartre. No, I haven't read it. I'm pretty sure that belonged to an ex-partner who was very into Sartre. Do I need to say more? I have it because one day I'm going to read it and prove that I'm smarter than them, but that day is not yet. So then that's Ivanhoe by Walter Scott. Classic, Acorn classic. Who knows when it's going to be read? It hasn't been read yet. Then A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. I am so intimidated by how big this book is and how tiny the font is. Holy moly. It's so well loved, I know, by the people who do make the commitment, but I am scared. Then we have Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, one of my favourite books of whichever year I read this. 2023? Yeah, I think 2023. Loved this book. Was such a surprise. Didn't think I was going to like it anywhere near as much as I did. Absolutely loved it. Then, what have we got? Right, Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. No, I haven't. I haven't read any Sally Rooney. But I'm gonna read Intermezzo. That's gonna be the first one I read, I've decided. So this will stay unread, depending on how I feel about Intermezzo, I think. Then we have The Human Stain by Philip Roth. Have read quite a lot of Philip Roth's books. Haven't read that one yet. Then, what are you? 120 Days of Sodom by the Marquis de Sade. Now, okay, I don't want to read this book, but I want to have read this book. You with me? I might read that one as part of a vlog if that doesn't get my channel banned. Maybe that's not a good idea. I might have to find somewhere else other than YouTube to read that book. But yeah, I kind of do want to read it, but also I don't think I'm gonna like reading it. So hey ho. Then we have, so this is actually a compendium of The Godfather and The Last Don by Mario Puzo. Now, I have read The Godfather and I really liked it. I read it about 10 years ago. I used to work in this tiny pub. And I used to do the Sunday shift completely on my own because we were only open like 12 till 6. And in that time, normally there'd be about 10 customers in my entire shift. And I read this book on a series of those shifts. And yeah, it kept me company. It kept me company. But now I don't remember anything that happened. So I don't know. I kind of like, I might just move that to the red pile because I don't know if I'm interested in reading The Last Don, but I had a great time with The Godfather. So I don't know if many people who regularly watch my channel, if this would be up your street at all. But if it is, and you've read it, tell me if The Last Don is as good as The Godfather, because I kind of can't be asked to read it unless it's as good. Then Death in Her Hands by Ottessa Moshfegh. Check. Didn't love it, but check. Then Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. I loved this book. I thought it was haunting and scary and like it was so ominous. It was so ominous. It's set, I can't even be bothered. It's so good. And I read it with Deep Water and Tipping the Velvet. Go watch that video if you want me to talk about it in more detail. Because guys, we're running out of time. I have to go walk my dog soon. Blonde by Joyce Carol Oates. That's clearly a book that's over 500 pages, which means it has clearly not been read yet. Next, At Swim Two Birds by Flann O'Brien. No, I haven't, but this is one that I do want to get to. So it's a classic. Modern classic, Irish book, and it does things that I really like because it's kind of metafiction. So I think it's this young guy who doesn't believe in stories having fixed beginnings and endings and writes these 3 allegedly quite distinct stories, but it's like a book within a book, but it's like 3 books within one book. I want to read it. Then Detransition Baby by Tori Peters, read it, really liked it, had a very good time with it. I don't mean this in any way, in a derogatory way in any way, but it's kind of like a popcorny book. Like, I was just like, yeah, I was in it and I was just gobbled it up. Ulysses by James Joyce? No, haven't. I've read other James Joyce. I've read The Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man and Dubliners, both of which are significantly shorter than Ulysses. I will read Ulysses one day. Possibly when I have retired. And if that book sits on my shelf unread for 40 years, I'm not mad about that. I'm not mad about that. Then we have I Capture the Castle by Susan Hill. I bought that book because at one point for work, I was going to have to write some English resources, like some teaching resources about it, but then the title swapped, so I never read it, but I still have it. I don't know. Then A Thousand Splendid Suns. That has been on my shelf since my first year of university, because I remember I got that as part of some kind of promotional thing with the student paper, because they did this thing sometimes where if you bought the student paper, you'd get like a book really cheap with it. And that was my first year of uni, so that was 2008 or 9, depending on, I can't remember what season it was. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I got it then. Lol, if someone writes a comment that like, actually that book came out in like 2015. Sorry, I'm a liar. Then we have, I haven't read it in case that was unclear. I haven't read it, but I loved The Kite Runner so much that I am a bit scared of it. And this is creepy of me, but actually I think kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense given how much I know myself, but it is going to make me sound insane to you, I had a white bedroom when I was a teenager, and I drew all over my walls in black marker pen because that's the kind of teenager I was. And I had a giant picture that I'd drawn in really scratchy black marker of the front cover of The Kite Runner above my bed. If you've read that book and you know what that boy is looking at, you might well think, Hannah, what a fucking weird thing to draw above your bed. But it made sense to me at the time. Then we have, what's that? Then we have, I think that is The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame by Hugo. Because when I first looked at it, I thought it was The Mill on the Floss, but I definitely bought The Mill on the Floss after this channel had started, because I remember buying it on South Bank at the big used, what's that called? Does that have a name? All the used books, South Bank in London. Nah, help me. Then we have Concerning My Daughter by Heejin Kim, which is a Korean book. Queer, liked it, read it. What a relief. Read that one. Well done me. Then Infamous by Lex Croucher, also gay, kind of Regency era, like gay Austen, but like sillier. And that was delightful. Not as delightful. I read Gwen and I Are Not in Love recently and like had a whale of a time with that, because I am probably more of an Arthurian gal than a Regency gal, but you know, great times were had by all. Then All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, yes. Read it, liked it. Farms and I did a book to screen adaptation of the Netflix limited series, which I hated. Then Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I loved this book so much. It was so weird. It was so wonderful. It is like nothing else I have read. What I actually feel like a bit like Piranesi is what The House of Leaves tried to do, but way better. Kinda. I don't know how you lot feel about The House of Leaves, and I might be catching a lot of heat for having said that. So we're moving swiftly on. Diary of a Bad Year by J.M. Coetzee. Haven't read it. Don't know when I will. I really want to like his writing. I really kind of feel like I should like his writing. I have no reason not to, but I haven't gelled with any of the books that he has read. I don't think they're bad books. I just find them sort of curiously like not impactful. Then that's Don Quixote by Cervantes. Haven't read that. I actually do really want to read that because I have heard wonderful things about that book. She's just such a big boy. I could potentially read these books next year and nothing else. Like, I think if I only read the books on my shelf that were over 500 pages, that would take me most of next year to do, I think. Then we have Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. A perfect book. Loved it. Wonderful. Mostly Dead Things by Kristen Arnett next. That is a queer book that I really wanted to like, kind of a literary contemporary following a young queer woman who is a taxidermist and like in this extremely toxic relationship with one of her best friends who is also like marrying her brother. It's messy as hell. And I didn't connect with it, even though it had lots of elements that I thought I would like. But it didn't quite work for me. Then we have The Penelopead by Margaret Atwood, which I have not read yet. But that is a retelling of the Odyssey from the perspective of Penelope. And I did read the Odyssey this year. So I am primed to read that soon before I forget too much about the Odyssey. Although a chunk of the Odyssey could stand to be forgotten, if I'm honest. Then Leave the World Behind by Rumen Alam, which I really liked. Also have a book to screen of that, so won't talk any more about that. And in that last column, there were 27 books and I read 11 of them. Good, good, we're getting there. Which means I've read 26 out of the 84 books that were on my physical TBR at the point that I began this adventure in YouTube. Hold still while I count how many unread books I now have on my shelf. Well, shit. 124. 124. So, I had 86, I read 24, and then got an extra, how many? Maths is hard. 86, 24, 62. Oh, I doubled. I took 30% off and then doubled what was left. Great. Okay. Here I think, right, so has BookTube been good for my reading? I mean, I've read some great books that were not on my shelf. And I think that's okay. I got more into using my library. I knew I was never going to read all of these super quickly. That wasn't the vibe for my TBR. I do think it might be helpful, because I do split my books between read and unread. I think I need to subdivide. And I think the unread books need to be in like, really want to read soon, want to read whenever, not going to read anytime soon, or something like that. Just so, because like 124 makes me, it's more panic inducing than exciting, I think. And yet, maybe it's fucking fine. How many unread books are on your shelves? Make me feel better, guys. In a comment down below, let me know. How's your physical TBR doing? Do you have books on your shelf that you know you are not going to read yet? Look, here's Lewin being like, I need to go for a walk, please, ma'am. Hi, baby. Yeah, I know, I'm finishing. Will you let me finish? 5 minutes? Okay. He will not let me finish. So, that's been that. That has been that. Let me know of the books that I've spoken about. If you've read them, any of the ones that I haven't read, and you think I should get to them sooner rather than later, let me know in a comment down below. I hope your reading is going well. I hope your TBRs are not causing you stress. Thanks for hanging around. If you're one of the people who has been here for a really long time, in fact, right, if you're watching this video, could you do me a favor and in a comment down below, let me know like roughly how long you've been here, like on my channel, not watching YouTube videos generally. That would be really interesting. And also, I know there are a lot more of you watching than there are who say hi in a comment. Now, if you're desperate not to say hi, that is fine. But my comments are quite a nice place to hang out. There is very little tension there. Might I recommend you take a peek? Okay, love you, bye.